Hello, you wonderful people. So for today's video, I'm going to talk about a video game I think would really do well getting adapted, and that is Killer7. If you're unfamiliar with Killer7 is, it's this earlier 2000 game. I looked it up yesterday. It came out in 2005. It's this kind of action horror, I guess first slash third person shooter to a certain extent. Basically, you play this hitman named Harmon, who basically has multiple personalities, and you hunt these. You basically go out on assassin missions to go after a particular target, but they're the main enemies of the game are these creatures known as Heaven Smiles. It's a whole thing. But the interesting thing about the whole 7 personality thing is it isn't just in his head. The different personalities literally manifest as like completely different people. So they all have their own names, their own quirks and personalities, and even just their own fighting style. It's a really weird game. I've never played it myself, but I have watched other people play it, and like, when you look at the story, you're like, oh, this is a weird game. Like, this story is actually kind of hard to follow. Once again, it's been a couple years, so maybe now that I'm older, the game would make a little bit more sense, but at the time, like, I remember watching someone play, I was like, I don't think this game makes any sense to me, because I believe it came out on the GameCube and PlayStation 2, if I remember correctly. But it's made by Suda51, the same dude, which, you know, the thing I kind of best known for is the No More Heroes series, which another fantastic series. I think they should get their own adaptations. But regardless, this is an interesting series in that regard of like, I think this story could do well, like whether you were to adapt it live action wise or animated wise. I personally think it would really do well as like a limited series. Maybe, I mean, you could probably do more. I don't know, because Suda51, he can't even do a sequel to the game fully because he doesn't own the rights anymore. It's Capcom who owns it, so he can't do anything with it. But I'm wondering, like, would he be able to kind of work around that? I mean, even though Capcom, it would have to be on Capcom's part to like adapt, like give the rights away to adapt it. But I'm also like wondering, could he be brought on to like, you know, because he always wanted to make a sequel but never was able to because of all of that. So like this could be his way to make a pseudo sequel kind of in conjunction with them without, I don't know. He'd probably still prefer it as a video game rather than like something live action. I would, I mean, an adaptation, but I would prefer like a TV show than a movie. Like you could probably squeeze all that into a movie, like the story of that video game. But I think you could do well like it's a limited series, like maybe like a 12, 13 episode series. I think it could really work live action wise because like the craziest things you'll have to worry about is like the Heaven Smiles. You can make those fully CGI, but I think with the right makeup and costume people, you could do those like very practically. But you know, there's other like wacky stuff about that world that I'm like, I don't know, I think it would probably lend itself very nicely to animation because there is a set, because the game kind of fluctuates a little bit like stylistically, because like it has cutscenes, but they're kind of almost like in-game model cutscenes, and then there's like a cutscenes later on. It's like one specific assassination, like that entire story mission, like the cutscenes are animated. I mean like full-blown animated. Like you could almost, like I could almost see Killer7 being stylized like Cowboy Bebop, because there's like, because the anime section later on like feels like it could be something straight up in the anime, but with just a lot of the characters and the styles of the game, I feel like it could be like a bloodier and kind of even weirder like Cowboy Bebop to a certain extent, which that actually kind of like, it's pretty dope. But I think you could make that like a one season, like 12, 13 episode anime if you wanted to, or like I said, if you can like expand upon the story, because there is room for like sequels and stuff like that. Once again, it's been years, so I don't even remember. I remember the game ends a little ambiguously, I think, leaving room for a sequel, because I would have been curious to see what that was all about. But it's an interesting, like, especially, you know, like something of that genre, kind of like Assassins and stuff like that, like kind of like your Hitmans and stuff like that. But I think this would be an interesting twist with the whole like supernatural element of like, oh, these beings known as Heaven Smiles, but also like you manifesting your different personalities and each one with their own skills and stuff like that. I think that'd be pretty dope. I was looking it up because I never knew this. Apparently back in 2006, it was adapted into a comic book. It was supposed to run for 12 issues, but I think what I was reading, it got canceled after only 4. But that, you know, that's kind of the interesting thing too. Like from what I was reading, it was like the whole thing about wanting to keep the essence of Killer7 alive, you know, true in the comic book as well, but also giving you a little more added to it. So that's the benefit of being able to adapt it. You could probably dive into things a little bit more that maybe the game didn't. Kind of, you know, world building even more in certain regards, because I think a lot of the world is kind of like you get pieces here and there about some of the state of the world, but it's never really dived into. But I think it's, you know, it's kept like super ambiguous like that on purpose. Yeah, I've spent, like, because I brought it up earlier too, but like thinking about Killer 7 getting adapted would also make me go, man, I think No More Heroes would be really dope. I feel like just how bombastic and crazy and wild that game is, those games, that would definitely be better in animation. I feel like I'd rather like a TV show than a movie. In fact, I think because of Invincible, you get something stylized like Invincible, and like No More Heroes could like definitely be on that same end, because it can be super wild out there, but it can also be like pretty bloody in certain regards. So I think that's just you know, some of the stuff that's kind of floating in my head. Because I just in general, like circling back to it, I think like Killer 7 could be a pretty dope like adaptation, because especially because like, you know, Resident Evil is getting its adaptations, because like there I was just looking it up because there's a review up about it. Apparently I haven't seen anything I've seen like bits and pieces of, but like the Infinite Darkness, apparently season 1 of that's out. Isn't the reboot they're doing like live action wise? I thought that was a movie, but I think that might be a TV show as well, but maybe I could be mistaken. But I mean, obviously, and that's in the Capcom family, so this is just, I don't know. I don't know if it's a popular enough series where someone's like, yes, let's take this property and adapt it. I don't know if anyone's really willing to put some money behind it. I think it'd be a really interesting Netflix series. Like I said, no matter which route they went, whether they went live action or whether they, because I'm also surprised there hasn't been like a Japanese like live adaptation of it or something like that. Like I said, it lends itself very nicely to being adapted, but maybe some of the aspects of it would make it hard to adapt. But it's just something that was kind of crossing my mind recently. I highly recommend it. Like, if you're just even interested at all, just like really take a quick dive into it. Maybe you don't have an interest, maybe the style of the game isn't for you, but just I highly recommend look into it and, you know, kind of tell me yourself whether you think it'd be, you know, interesting adaptation, because I'm sure maybe a lot of people subscribe to the channel will probably have no idea what that's about, or maybe I'll be surprised, and some people who are familiar with the property are like, oh, I wouldn't mind seeing adapted, and some people might be like, no, I think it's perfect as a game, I would not want it adapted. You know, some people can feel like that. Some people like, oh, I do like it, but maybe they didn't like it as a game, but maybe they would like it, you know, in an being adapted. But obviously, just let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, light to the force, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.